Welcome into Vertical Pursuit, the podcast that we oftentimes have said in the past is kind of geared toward dudes, but we've found that a lot of ladies like it too, and maybe specifically in that it has given, in some cases, their significant others kind of a unique place to hang out and hopefully get some positivity. The last few episodes, or at least the last couple, thought-provoking. I'm not sure how positive, but there's always positivity. But in this episode, I want to have you set it up, and then I'll backfill at the end. And it's kind of something that recently happened that, you know, and I'll get to all this when I do backfill, but something that hit me, and it was all about blessing and providence and acceptance and receivership, if that makes any sense. But Pastor Tatlock, the floor is yours. Unlike a lot of episodes, I won't spend 10 minutes setting it up. I want you to set this up.
Well, the crazy thing is something happened today's Wednesday, 3 days ago, that I'm still processing. Like every day I'm like, what just happened? Wait, what? I mean, what I'm about to tell you guys on here is people were laughing because what happened Sunday, 3 days ago, later that day, people said, I've never seen you speechless. And if you know me, I have no problem with shortage of words, but I literally was speechless. I could not find the words for what I experienced in the terms of love, generosity, and like in such a bullseye sort of way. We know people demonstrate love and generosity in all kinds of awesome ways, but if you've ever been on the receiving end of what I would call miraculous, out of this world kind of godly generosity and love was such a bullseye that just like hit at the core of my heart. That's what happened Sunday. So how's that for a first little bit of a segue that maybe you're going, what happened on Sunday?
Pretty good. And if you've listened to these podcasts before, you have heard us talk a lot about, in our lives, the way we are, our passion for vintage things of character. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is because, and I know a lot of people are like this, women and men. But a lot, since we deal with men when we talk about this stuff more often than not, I always think it's more men perhaps, and the whole concept of the man cave, and I think some of the question that kind of stuff we've talked about. I have some vintage neon lights that take me back to a time as a kid that was comfortable and safe and warm, and that's the reason I think if you go around to a vintage car show or Cars and Coffee in your city. And you were to go talk to some of these guys and gals who have these vintage classic automobiles or motorcycles or RVs, because there's that whole crowd too. And then you ask them, why is this your hobby, or why are you drawn to this? You'd probably hear an answer like what I just said. It takes me back. It reminds me of a time when, or it reminds me of a moment or a season in my childhood or in my life when I was particularly happy, or again, felt very, very safe, or it was a transitional period of influence that was a very positive season of my life. And if you've listened to us talk about your man cave, and we've usually our fathers come up in this, our earthly dads who are no longer with us, either one of them. And my dad passed 3 years ago, and I go down to my mom's house, who's still there, and I go into his shop. And his shop has his, right near there is his boat, his little fishing boat, which was, my dad was one of those guys who never. Honestly, I can say this, and I've stopped myself sometimes. He never coveted. He was always thrilled. He had this little aluminum boat, like a 16-foot aluminum boat with a little Honda motor on the back. And I always said, Dad, you go out and you sit in the rain. Why don't we get you a boat that has, not that he couldn't have afforded it. Wouldn't have been easy, but he could have. He always said, I like my boat. Okay. And always just very much valued simple things. And his shop has his fishing gear, his crab rings, fly rods, you name it, some tools. He wasn't, probably didn't have the passion for craftsmanship on like wood stuff that I do, but, and I go into his shop and the smell takes me back to childhood. It takes me back to happiness. And my dad is this larger than life individual who was such a leader and had such an impact on so many as a coach and a teacher. And so all this to say that your story about your dad is very similar. And growing up, your dad, among other things, had an old pickup. And you remember and you associate old pickups, especially the smell of an old truck, oil, grease, inside, plastic, electrical, whatever. And so I have known, and so have others, that your desire has been for a long time, and this isn't to acquire things. It hasn't been to show off. It hasn't been to say, look at me. It's been merely to probably mentally transport yourself back to a time and almost hold in tribute something to your father, a guy who also touched and moved and led and all these things we talk about that we both look up to and miss. Therefore, a while back, some close friends of yours and associates to some degree, people who work with you at the church, and it was mostly just a bunch of dudes, decided we're going to fix this. And if we get enough guys, a couple dozen, to chip in a little bit, we can find you that truck. We can find you that long lost archive of your past that covers you like a warm blanket. So we did it. And we went through a month or two of searching, and it was such a God thing on the way it happened because of who we met, who had the truck, heard the story, and I told him what we were doing. He cut the price. I didn't ask him to. I've done a lot of stuff with cars, and I went into this and said, here's the story. You decide what you want to do. And he cut the price down to our budget, and we got you a 72 Ford F100 pickup that isn't a show truck, but it's
nice.
But it's really nice.
It's very nice. It is. And the amazing thing is, like, so here's the experience that happened Sunday. And then let's break it down more than that, because there's so many, we talked about the other night, there's so many parables that are going to come from this that I think whether you're into old trucks or not, I think this will encourage you. So here's Sunday. Sunday, we're at church. I have no idea.
And you've been gone, by the way.
That's true. I've been gone the last couple weeks.
Thank goodness you were, because I was just praying this wouldn't slip out. And somebody innocently, I didn't want it for them. I didn't want somebody to accidentally trip, because I've done that. I didn't want somebody accidentally let the cat out of the bag and have you go, what? And then all of a sudden, but it didn't happen. Thank goodness.
It was
because you were gone. You were in Montana.
I was out of town for a couple weeks, and we just got back. Like, it was like Friday, and so Sunday at church was the first time I saw everybody. And so I go to church normal day, and we had planned. My wife Bernadette, she was texting with some other friends, Scott and Christy Thompson at the church, and said, so Bern's like, hey, we're going to go hang out, and Mike and Shelly are going to be there, and we're just going to go have lunch. And she said, we've been working our calendar out to get 3 couples together, and Sunday
Bern was really good, by the way.
Yeah,
she and I were conspiring for weeks.
And I had no idea. I'm literally telling you, I didn't even have the foggiest clue what you guys were doing.
She sent me a text from Montana, and she said, do you have a picture of the truck? And I said,
yeah, because then he'll see
what if he's looking over your shoulder? What if he thinks you're having an affair because you're spending so much time on your phone? And he grabs the phone and only to see this. So I did send her a couple early on, and then as we got further down the road toward reveal day, I told her on one text, I said, I'm not sending you any more pictures. I don't want any mistakes.
I think I may have been on her phone once. I don't even know the password to her phone. I think I do. I don't know if I do. But
I'm glad. In this case, I'm glad you didn't know.
Yeah. So, what's
she doesn't have a burner phone as far as I
know. She was so perfect. I mean, she was so great at this, and it was fun because, so here's a story. Show up at church. I have no clue you guys did all this. And then we're going to go to lunch afterwards. And so we're driving out to Scott and Christy's house, and they live out in the country. And so I'm driving, and Bern's like, pull up there. And Mike, you're out there in the driveway, because they had some other stuff. And so it made sense to meet you out there, because you were trying to show us where to park, which makes sense. So I have no clue what's going on. Think we're going to walk in the house, have a cool lunch, and just hang out. And we're walking down kind of the side of their house that goes into the back.
Kind of a breezeway.
Yeah, like this breezeway that
to
opens
a back
up.
driveway.
Yeah, and it had this really great property that looks out over some land. And so the three of us, so Mike, you're walking with Bern and I, and literally, I mean, we're talking about like Montana, nothing. Thinking we're going to go eat in the backyard or something. I come around the corner, and I look up, and there's a video now. So we'll figure out a way if you want to watch the video.
Yeah, we can post
put it on
that.
YouTube or something.
Sure we can.
That way you can see it because they capture this whole thing.
David Ward did that video and did a fantastic
David
job.
Crushed that. That video is amazing. And we come around the corner, and there's like 25 people standing there yelling, "Surprise!" And I'm like I have no idea what. And then I look over, and I see this gorgeous 1972 Ford Explorer pickup. That is, I know you said it's not showcase, but in my mind, it's like, whoa. I mean, gorgeous. I mean, original color from, I mean, right out of the magazine, and which we'll get to that. And I see it, but I'm like, what's going on? My brain is like, what did they yell surprise for? You know how there's moments where you're, first of all, I'm shocked there's 20-some people there because I thought there would be a handful of us having lunch. So I'm like, wait, why are they here? And then my brain's going, surprise? Like, no anniversary, no birthdays, no, I'm going through this list. Mike hands me the keys. And at first I was like, okay, here's where I went with it. Because, you know, your brain's not going to go,
right.
Your brain is not going to go, they're giving this to you. Like, wait, what? Part of that's because you don't believe it. Part of it's like, I don't know if I want to believe that because what if that's not true? Like,
isn't it how fast and how much your brain processes in a matter of seconds?
All of it. It's like, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? So like the first thought I had was, they said surprise. Okay, no anniversaries, no birthdays. Oh, they're sending Bern and I out.
Oh.
Because here's the thing, because Scott's dad works on old cars and vehicles out there, and they have some really cool ones. So my brain was kind of like, oh, is this his? And are you guys like sending us away for
going wine tasting or something?
Yeah, like go wine tasting. Like, we love you guys. And Mike, we know how much you love old cars. So we have one for you to go enjoy that time. And I was like, okay. And then you were like, at one point, shortly after, like, it's yours. And I was like, what? Wait, no. My brain could not lock that in. And then I'm also like, wait, these are all these amazing people that I love that are here. And so I'm looking at, I'm trying to take in the truck, but I'm also taking in like who's here. And I'm like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And then you're like, no, this is yours. And I'm like, okay, it's now starting to set in. And then there's a part of me kind of going, no, I don't deserve this. Like, there's of
course, I knew you'd have that. I would
there's
too.
this instant pushback.
Yep.
Of like, no, I don't deserve this. No. And then you're like, get in, start it. And I'm starting. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was just like, are you kidding me? And as soon as I sat in, the smell. And I know if you're listening and you may not know what we're talking about, your brain forms memories based on your five senses. Things you see, things you touch, things you taste, things you smell, brings you back. It's amazing how your brain does that.
Yeah.
And instantly it takes you back. And because that was the story. So here's part of the story too. And this relates, like just the other day, we were in your garage and you're like, hey, here's my dad's fly rod.
Yeah.
And we're pulling out your dad's fly rod. And it's like, wow, brings back all those memories for you and your dad. And when I was in high school, we did not have a lot of money. In fact, the funniest story is we moved from Los Angeles to Canada, so I was considered an immigrant. That's literally was my title. And I had a student visa, which meant I couldn't get a job as a high schooler. But the government would allow you to work on campus. So I got to work for the school as a janitor, high school kid, working as a janitor. I got paid $1 an hour. And I was cleaning the hockey pucks and urinals.
Canada took 70 cents of that dollar. Yeah.
Back then, that would have been like 10 cents American or something like that for every dollar. Pretty much. Sorry. It wasn't far from that. So, here I am as this high school kid wanting to be independent with my own wheels, got my own license, and I can't afford anything, $1 an hour, working this janitor job. My dad went and found, and he didn't have any money, but my dad went and found a truck. It was a Ford pickup, and it was a mid-'60s Ford, that he bought for, I think, $375. And it was no power steering, granny gears, rust bucket, but it's what I drove all through high school. And it was not a chick magnet at all. It's so funny because I was joking last night. We were at your house and all the high school girls came out from Gabby. And all these high school girls are looking at my new truck, the 72. This is such a cool old truck. And I said, gosh, I've never had so many high school girls excited about a truck. I said, the problem is it just came like 30 some years late.
Right. If only you'd had that reaction.
Well, I had that when I was in high school. But it just was a time like my dad and I would work on it, and he had hot rods, or he was a mechanic before he was a pastor. So it was just the smell. I have a toolbox that I've kept all these years since he's passed, and it's a rusted toolbox, and I open it and I smell that.
Yeah.
I smell the tools, the oil, the grease, the metal, and it takes me back to that. And it's funny because when you talk about, anybody else would look at that and go, it's garbage. It's that toolbox is, get a new one, man. Come on, it's rusted. But we attribute value to things. Things have their own intrinsic value. And you might be listening going, man, should we be attached to material things? Is that materialistic? Here would be my answer to that. I think God created us to connect with all five senses relationally, which means it's why we hold on to things that are keepsakes from people that have passed away that we care about, or they're not with us. They're across the world or across the country. We can't be with them. So what do? We get close to something that represents them. And I think that shows us, because that's what Jesus did when he came in the flesh. Jesus could have stayed as God in spirit world, but Jesus showed up in the flesh, the incarnation of Jesus, and he said, I did this to show you who God is. And people got to see Jesus sweat. They got to see Jesus laugh. They got to see Jesus be real and tangible and connect with him. That's why we have the Gospels. It's Jesus in the flesh so we can connect with him. And of course, we don't put any of these things at the same level as Jesus, but the point of it is, I think we're meant to connect with each other by connecting with the things that represent each other, memories and all that. So for me, for the last several years, midlife, I've been like, man, wouldn't it be great to start looking for that old truck, an old truck that represented that era. And so I was looking and this and that, and you knew I was looking. Carl knew I was looking, and you guys kind of really were like the snowball behind this. Next thing you know, all of a sudden, so many people got involved and made it all a reality that now I'm sitting here on the blessed side of your guys' love and generosity, and it's overwhelming. Like, I still have to wake up every day going, wait, is this real?
Well, a couple nights ago, you came over the night you're talking about, and I took a video of you leaving because the truck's got the clearance marker lights on top, and it's so just awesome. What it is it's a vintage stock, for the most part, farm truck.
Yep, exactly.
Complete with cowboy hat and gun rack.
Exactly.
And all that was what I had envisioned.
Yep.
And what Perfectly. I knew you would like.
Yeah.
But watching you leave, and I sent that video to a couple of, and this was my hope in this. Yes, bless you. Yes, of course. But I knew you also, like me, in having difficulty receiving.
Yeah.
But if I could frame it in a way, that's why I asked David to do the video, because I wanted video evidence of this with a song and the way the video's done, to where it would echo out and other people would take joy in it, and it would perhaps model blessing.
Yeah.
And so, yes, obviously it was for you, and that's what everybody had the thought of, and that's why they got involved in this. By the way, you're the Trailblazers team chaplain, NBA team. I had a couple guys that I reached out to for that, and I put a cap on what they could give, because I didn't want this to be a one guy thing.
Yeah, right.
I said $500.
Yeah.
No more, because I want this to be
was so cool.
I want this to be a community thing, not one guy writing a big check.
Right.
And we're not talking about that much money here. So if you're imagining it's some $50,000 truck, it was not. So
There's
we're talking
a God story even in that, though.
Yes, there is. But anyway, and then I had thought, and it was the way I always do things, I start thinking way out ahead, probably too far at times, but I was thinking about perhaps what it could serve as for others to see and hear, because I know you're very authentic in the way you share stories, sermons, but certainly stories with people and what this could stand as. And I didn't want this to be, did you really need that? Do you know how many kids in Africa are looking for me? I didn't want it to turn into that. And it's not. And this was not as you said a minute ago, when you start wading into the materialistic, it wasn't that. And you know what gave me the confidence to do this? And you won't even remember this, but 12 years ago or so, I had started saving, and I had $10,000 in a fund, and I'd always wanted an old Jeep. And one summer I said, I'm just going to do it. And I found an old Jeep, and I don't even think it was $10,000, but I took it to the church office. It was 12 years ago, and I pulled in, and my thought was, at the time, and my son was with me, and you came out, and I kind of felt, I knew you, of course. I knew where your heart is. But at the same time, I was thinking, should I have done this for myself? Is this showy? Is this, is the right reason behind this? And then you said a line, I don't even remember it entirely. You said the Lord loves to give blessings through even inanimate objects at times, blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay. And that put me at a great deal of comfort when I was fighting the guilt of feeding a personal pleasure, and something that maybe would only affect me. So the way that we did it this time was, hopefully, did it in a way where it wasn't something that you had to then go through the uncomfortable and maybe almost even secretive, whereas I don't want people to see this because I don't want them to think I misused money when I'm a pastor and I ask people for money. You know, I mean, not outwardly, but
we pastors, we deal with perception every day.
Yes, you have to.
And it's not fair, but it's a reality.
Right. And then when you're on giving a sermon and you're talking about tithing and whatnot, I thought of all this stuff and thought how I don't want it to be uncomfortable. Therefore, I had it. It was not a church thing. It was, and I made that point to people when I asked them to be a part of this, and Carl did and Matt did. It was not, this isn't through the church. This is some brothers blessing a brother. That's all this is.
And that was so cool. I told you this when we were at the house the other night. We were messing around with it and having fun and sitting in your garage. And it's like, you know, and I told this to Carl as well too, was that this vehicle has a value, not a price. And like,
that's a good way of putting it.
You cannot put a price on it. And I literally said that. It's priceless to me now. Why? And I said, here's the comparison. That old truck I had from my dad was a rust bucket, just like the toolbox was. But why do I have it today, and why will I never want to part with it? And somebody broke into my truck months ago, and the thing I was most concerned that they were going to steal was not all the other stuff that they did steal. They stole a ton of stuff out of my truck. But the one thing I was like, I hope they didn't steal was my dad's old toolbox. Why? It has more value to me.
Yeah, right.
It's everything else can be replaced. That can't, because it represents something. And I said, this truck, you can't put a price on it because the value is greater than any price. And why is the value there? It's because of you guys. It's because of all the time, the months of looking, the conversations, the fun scheming behind the scenes and getting everybody involved, and all the labor that you had to put to go pick it up, to fix it, all the details, the time, all of that. Like, you cannot put a price on that. And every time I get in the truck, I don't even think of the truck anymore. What I think of is all these friends that love me, and the time and energy that you guys put into that to say, hey, we love you, want this for you. And what it does spiritually, so not just relationally, but spiritually, it reminds me of the verse where the Bible says, and our Heavenly Father loves to give good gifts. But the reality is, how does he give good gifts? They don't just fall from the sky. He gives his gifts through others. So when I receive, it's hard because we all think I don't deserve this. Oh man, they did a lot of work. I feel bad for them. That was an obligation. And then it's like the Holy Spirit's like, you will rob them.
Don't rob them, right?
Of the joy and the love that they want to express. And then I felt like the Lord said, don't rob him.
Yeah.
Of the love and joy he's expressing through you guys to me. And the Lord's like, you need to receive this. And I know this is going to sound really spiritual, but it's true. That truck represents the gospel. Every time now that I'm going to share a story about the gospel, I'll probably talk about that truck. And you guys, it's because it's the story, right? It's the story. What is the gospel? The gospel is that Jesus gave his life for us, and it's by grace. And the word grace means gift. And it is something we receive, not because we earn it, deserve it. It's because it's an extension of his love. And that's why for a lot of people, they choose religions over Jesus, because they don't know how to receive something that they didn't have to earn. It's just out of grace and love. And so we have to learn to receive that, because that's when it becomes the blessing. So to me, the whole story of you guys give me the trust. And then even my mom said something the other day, another parable. She goes, you had no idea this gift was coming. She goes, but there was a group of people that were planning to bless you. She goes, think about what God is doing in somebody's life right now. They don't even know right now that behind the scenes, he's like, I'm going to bless them. I'm going to bless them. And it's just the heart of God that comes through all of that. And like for me, man, the way that you guys went so above and beyond, and the expression of love for me, like every time I sit in there, I just go, oh man, it like I said, you can't put a price on it anymore. I'll never sell it. I said to Vern the other day, I said, I'll never sell it. I literally told her this. I go,
you're probably going to flip it.
Well, what's funny was I said, I'll never sell it because there will never be a price tag. I said, the only thing I'll probably pass it on to my kids, or I said, I'll pass it on to you guys because you gave it to me. But I said, I'll never sell it.
Well,
it'll never be sold.
And
There's
the
no
part
price.
of this too is, and I know you know this, and then you think, okay, if we're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
And then I imagine, first of all, and this is the truth, we got as much out of this as you did, if not more.
Yeah.
And part of and everybody's gone through this Christmas morning with the kids, and you've put together the train set and the anticipation, which that's another chance to weave in a little bit of a biblical world, and that is the Advent.
Yeah.
The Advent part of this and the month leading up to it, or whatever it was, and we actually had it. And we had it at Scott's house in the garage. And this is another reason why I was so glad you were gone for the 3 weeks you were gone, or whatever, 2.5 weeks. Not only that I didn't think that, or that I worried that somebody might accidentally say something that would have kind of put you on the track, as you're like me, you'd have gone down that track of, what are they talking about? Thank goodness that didn't happen. But just the joy of preparing a gift.
Yeah.
And the details, which I've done this with, I've flipped, 6 or 7 cars in the last 15 years. And what I'm good at, I cannot rebuild an engine. I can do minor things. What I'm good at is the finishing touches. And I'm good at finding the little authentic pieces, not reproductions. And thank goodness for eBay and all these things, because I was able to go on and find some authentic things from the era that were icing on the cake, so to speak. And then the reason I tie that in is because I've always had a really hard time receiving. We've talked about this in past episodes, be it a compliment or a gift or all these things. I've just never been good at it. And then it was explained to me one time about what you just talked about, how by not receiving fully and feeling your own worth in receiving, you are robbing the giver. And so my prayer going in, even the night before when I was laying in bed praying that, number one, because the church was the next day, I prayed that nobody would have to, I didn't want them to have the burden of a burden of a secret is tough when you burden somebody with a secret. But then for them, I didn't want the risk of somebody saying something to then make them feel awful. So I prayed that didn't happen, both for you and for them. But then I prayed that you would receive it and that you wouldn't say you shouldn't have, which is what the comment that always comes after gifts. And you would truly understand that there was easily as much, if not more, probably a lot more joy on the part of those who did this than even that you initially received. Now, one funny thing is I had talked to your wife and Carl. We had talked about, okay, because of the way the house is set up in the breezeway where you can't see the driveway until you come around the corner, I had talked to Carl. I said, maybe I should set him up So my plan was going to be, I was going to stop you a foot from that reveal before you saw everybody, and I was going to just look you in the eye for a second and just say, something's going to happen in a minute that is going to be a massive blessing to you. So get your head around it. And then I was going to hand you the keys. And then I talked to Bern, and she made great sense. She said, you know what? Let's just go with the full-blown surprise. where we don't.
It's just a full shock factor.
Where we just don't say anything. And I said, you know what? You're exactly right. And so we did it that way. And part of your first minute and a half, 2 minutes was watching you mind blown and nearly passing out and trying to understand, watching somebody try to reason with something that is not making logical sense to them.
My brain was
kind of
fried.
Entertaining.
I'm like, it's like not computing. Like, what is happening right now?
I know. But
you know, the cool thing too in that moment was, you know, you hand me the keys, started up, and then it was the receiving line of everybody.
Yeah.
Like, because you guys have, I know that there was like you and Carl and others did really the bulk of that, and but like a lot of people played a part in that in different ways, and it was really cool to have just hug everybody, and you know people give you hugs and say things, and you're like, wow, this is so genuine, no strings attached. I think that's the other side of why some people can't receive gifts.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, what's
going to be the expectation of me now?
And I'm like, this is just so authentic love poured out. And here's the crazy thing. Okay, I'm connecting some of these spiritual things. I have done this for a while, but why I looked up, why do we, you know, we're in the garage, your garage, we have vintage stuff, nostalgic stuff. And the word nostalgic, I didn't know this until a year ago. The word nostalgic means to return home. It was used as a military word when soldiers would go to battle and they had homesickness, and they would pull out a picture of their bride, their family, home, and they would have this feeling of, I want to go back home. I want to be home. That's where the word nostalgia comes from. It means to return home. And we know that our ultimate home is heaven. And in heaven, there's peace, joy, there's love, there's the presence of God. Christ is there. But you know what also is in heaven? Family, community. That's in heaven. But Jesus said, pray that heaven would be on earth. And so for me, that moment was nostalgic, not just in an era of the cool vintage truck that it was. It was nostalgic in the sense of, this is a slice of heaven on earth. This is what heaven's going to be like. Ultimate generosity, love, people celebrating you, no strings attached, God's grace. That was a heavenly moment. And you guys what made that what it was. And there's even a verse in the Bible, it's like one verse that tells us when we go to heaven, it actually says our friends will be there to meet us. And we always think, yes, Jesus is there, he's the focus of it all, 100%. But he created us to experience. So that's why I was like, there's so many deep layers to this of like this is what I'm processing in my heart, the words, the conversations, and you go back and watch the video and just the things that people shared. It was like heaven on earth.
Well, and one more part of this to back up a little bit, when we started looking, you can find providence in this, and I do. I know where to look, and and oftentimes everybody's done the Craigslist thing and Facebook Marketplace, and it can be weird, it can be odd. You don't know who you're going to get. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's a scam. And I've done enough of this to where oftentimes things that look too good to be true are. And so when I started looking, I was looking for when you came over a few weeks ago and we were talking by the fire, just having a beer and a cigar in front of the fire, you brought up trucks. And I fed that a little bit because I had already done this. And you were talking about wanting to stay in the 60s. And I wasn't really looking at the next era, which is the way the Ford trucks went is 63, 66, then 67, 72 was the Gen 5. F100. And so I wasn't looking at that generation, but I had a 69 a few years ago. And you loved that. And you brought that up and said, that's the body style I want. And when you said that I couldn't contain, I did, but it was hard for me to contain my enthusiasm because I was like, okay, then now I'm okay, because I was afraid you wanted the previous body style, which I had looked at a lot of those and they just didn't fit the mark. And for some reason I would go on every night, which I still do. I always am like this with cars. I look and I scan and I look and I scan, and this one I kept stopping on it. I kept stopping on it. And then finally I said, well, I got to reach out to the guy. You don't know what you're going to get. But I just gave him the full story. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I had given that whole story to one other guy on a truck that I'm glad I didn't get a response back. But what I just said was exactly what we've talked about. It's our pastor, guy who's done a lot for a lot of people, very selfless, sold a house in the past that was bigger and gave the proceeds, the difference, the margin to the church, all these things that I know about you that you've done that you don't advertise. And I told the story to this guy in just an out of the blue, complete stranger. And the guy said, wow. Didn't say much. I think he probably was wondering, is this real or not? Then I said it again. And then he started to say, this is pretty amazing that you guys are doing this. And I said, this is our budget. It's under what you have. I said, but and he wrote back and said, I have talked to my wife and we're going to make this work. And so I said to Carl, we got to go down. We got to drive down an hour and a half away. And so I still never met the guy. I never talked to him, and went down there, and he told us the number we needed to be at and said, we are only too happy to do it for this. And then he said, when this happens, would you send me a picture or something so that I can share it with my small group? And I kind of said, what are the odds I would have found somebody
no kidding,
kind of evenly yoked and understanding what we're doing. And then I got home that night, and I told this story the other day, but I know your brain was scrambled at the time I told it. I got home that night, and I hadn't done my daily devotional that I do with a buddy, just, a reading. They're just a quick thing that we do every day just to stay in the Word. And the devotional that night, when I read it, after I had come home and after he had texted me, and he texted me as I was getting off the exit coming home, and Carl was driving the truck, and it said, what a reminder that, it was something like this, what a reminder that God directs our every step and blesses people through all things, even inanimate objects. And I got home and did my devotional that night, and it used the exact same phrase, right down to inanimate objects. Wow. And that's when I got really fired up. But I have since reached back out to him today, in fact.
Oh, no way.
I sent him the video that was finished last night. And I sent it to him, and he just said, unbelievable.
Wow.
He said, we are going to share this. So that's my point, is this story is going to have a ripple effect.
That's exactly exactly.
Which was the point.
That's it. And that's the thing is, when you guys, this is the last thing I'll probably say on this, because there's a lot more that I can go into deeper, but don't have the time for it. When I looked at the truck, I saw so many minute details that I knew you're like, I know Mike. And I think that, and even like Carl, like a year ago, had like sent me a link because he knew I was looking for trucks. And I'm like, oh, wow, that meant a lot that he just was even looking for me and knew. And then you guys, like, you got the VP sticker on there and the flag, the hat. You went and bought me a cowboy hat, the gun rack. And like every detail you guys put into that was an expression of it was generosity that was supernatural generosity. But it was also an expression of, we know you. And we celebrate you. And we love those things about you. And I think like that's exactly why this is such a gospel parable story, is that Jesus loves to customize his love and generosity to each and every one of us.
And he knows us.
And the things that matter to us matter to him. And why do I know that? Because Jesus, in using a parable, talked to a bunch of dads, fathers, and it's true of moms too, but he said to some fathers, he said, How many of you, if you have a kid, you're going to give them as a gift a snake or stone or scorpion? You're not going to do that. You're a good father, but you're not a perfect father. But he goes, how much more your heavenly Father, who is perfect, loves to give good gifts. And that word good gifts there means specific, blessed, known. It's this idea of when you go to find that perfect gift because you know the person. That's why I said at the very beginning of this podcast, it was a generosity to hit a bullseye. And I think the story, the ripple effect of an owner who's in his small group, and it was showed at our church this morning to a men's study. They showed the video there, and I know I'm going to be sharing it on my social, and I'm going to be sharing it from the pulpit. Why? Because that's how you steward it. For me, it's about stewarding a God story. I don't get to just keep this to myself. No. Yeah, I get to enjoy the truck for myself, but the story I get to share because it's stewarding, and you hope it becomes contagious. Because that was the thing. I know you and Carl were kind of the guys that spearheaded it, but it became contagious.
Yeah.
But next thing you know, multiple people are like, we want to be a part of this. We want to be a part of this. That is what the gospel is. It has a momentum. Generosity that's real has a momentum behind that people go, how do I be a part of that? And not that everybody has to go get somebody a truck, but there's things we all can do every single day, little things where we're thinking of other people, going, how do I make a sacrifice on my end that blesses you? Not only will it bless me, but it becomes part of that momentum, that ripple effect. And I think it's going to inspire a lot of people what it will look like uniquely in their own life.
I think so too. And I think that we had the time and certainly the desire, but it wasn't all that hard. I say that because of this. Yes, the search was and everything else that we did, and there was sweat equity in it. But we gathered some people who just said absolutely, and it didn't because it was a village.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't individually cause a massive sacrifice for any one person. And I thought when I was doing an email to 13, 14 people, I was going to add more, and I thought I had to guard against the idea of keeping it small because I didn't want to feel left out. Because I know even now there are going to be people who, why didn't you tell me you were doing this? I know we'll get a lot of that, and it wasn't done like that. It was honestly done just like one night I went, I'm going to send out an email and see what we can get. Because the initial few guys, there was some there, but I thought we got to get a little more. And so just kind of sent a 5-paragraph email, and everybody stepped up. And I was just going to say that the blessing far outweighed the investment in this case. And there was an investment, but
there was, yeah,
but
absolutely.
It was mostly time and energy. But what a small thing for the outcome that we ultimately got.
I guarantee you from this, I mean, I know I'm beyond blessed. My family is beyond blessed. I know you say you're blessed, like those who got to be a part of it, but I think there's going to be a bigger testimony through this. And it's already happening.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if this is like using your analogy of the ripple effect. This made a splash. And I know it did a splash in my own heart, but I would hope that ripple effect becomes, even that we're talking about it on the podcast, is part of that ripple effect.
Yeah.
And maybe you're listening going, you know what? There's something I could do to be generous in somebody else's life. And now that's the next layer of the ripple. And then it keeps going. And I hope we connected the thread that that's what God is. That's his heartbeat. And so when you're able to be generous, in your own words, help explain that's who God is.
And that's when you were when the crowd had filed out and you're about to leave in the truck, that's why I held my phone up and I said, give a message to the owner, Michael, in Dallas, Oregon. I said, just give him a couple words because he's going to replay that to every friend he has. And then the video came behind it. So thanks, Michael, for your part in this. Carl, Matt, and everybody who donated. And I mean, again, we didn't give him a Ferrari here. This was a very modest as it relates to vintage cars, but it wasn't about that. It was about what it meant. It was about the nostalgia. It was about honoring. It was about the memory. And it was about the ripple effect that the blessing will have, hopefully on others, and will encourage you to do the same, even if it's not a automobile.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thanks for letting us tell the story. It's still fresh in our minds, and so we wanted to kind of tell this story. And as much as you have used the old original truck in teaching and sermons. Everybody had heard about the
They
truck.
do.
And that's why this was the perfect thing to bring back.
Exactly.
But thanks for joining us on Vertical Pursuit. Thank you to David Ward for the great video, which I hope a lot of you who want to see it will find a way to see it. We'll figure it out. Might even put it on the website or the app or find some way to do that. And Nick Livingston as well. You were part of this, and you're a big help. And Colton Myers also with Vertical Pursuit. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast, comment, or message us, and check out our website at verticalpursuit.org. Download the VP app and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.